Hi, and welcome to Mindfulness and Stress Management. My name is Mindy. I'm a wellness professional with QuadMed. This is a first part in a 6-part series that is good for Take Action credit. So if you choose to do the other 5 parts of the series, you will get credit towards that incentive. Let's begin. Today we're going to talk about mindfulness. What actually is it? We hear that word a lot. How can we incorporate mindfulness into our daily life? What are some of the signs and symptoms of stress? And what are the best ways to manage that stress, which include mindfulness? We want to look at 3 different stress management techniques, which I'll be walking you through. One is deep breathing, one is progressive muscle relaxation, and the other is guided visualization. So what actually is mindfulness? Well, if we look at the dictionary definition of mindfulness, it is being able to remain aware of how you're feeling, both internally and externally, right now in the present moment. So staying in the present, that's actually a really difficult thing to do and something that we don't do often enough. In fact, a Harvard study showed that people spend an average of 47% of their time with their minds wandering, not being in the present moment. That's almost half of our time. And where are our minds if they're not in the present? Well, they're in the past and they're in the future. And granted, there are times where we think of very happy memories or we think of a fun event that we are anticipating in the future. But if we're being honest, most of that time is spent in negative thinking. So we're thinking of things in the past that we wish we would have done or would have done differently. And we're anticipating things that may happen in the future or may not, and we're worrying about them. So that same Harvard study showed that the people who were able to stay in the present moment were actually happier. So this mindfulness thing is really important, and it can help with managing stress and making you happier overall. So most people, when they think of mindfulness, they think of meditation. And that certainly is one aspect of mindfulness or one way you can practice it. But there are a lot of different ways that you can incorporate it into your everyday living. So you can practice mindfulness when you are exercising, when you are cleaning the house, cooking, maybe when you're outside gardening. There's a lot of different ways to do that, and we'll talk about that more as we go along. So there are 4 key components to keep in mind when practicing mindfulness. They're not all necessary, but they are very helpful. So the first one is a point of focus. So this is just something that you can focus on to help you stay in the present moment. That point of focus could be something internal, like just thinking of sitting next to a campfire or being on the beach or some scene that makes you feel peaceful, focusing on that. Or it could be external, so it could be a sound, maybe a bell ringing over and over, saying a word over and over. In traditional meditation, we hear people say Aum, and that is their point of focus. It could also be for a runner, it could be every right foot strike. So there really are a variety of things that can keep us focused on that present moment. The second thing would be a quiet environment. Again, it's not necessary. You can do it without a quiet environment, but it sure is going to be a lot easier with a quiet environment because you'll have fewer distractions. So being able to block out sounds and people and noises is a very difficult thing. So if we can eliminate those, that's great. The third thing would be a comfortable position. This could be lying down, but it could also be sitting, standing, or moving. Again, if we are running or if we are gardening, cleaning, such as that. So again, not necessary, but very, very helpful to help you stay focused in the moment. Basically, we don't want to be uncomfortable. And then the last thing is probably the most important, that's having an observant, non-critical attitude. So not non-critical towards yourself. This is a difficult thing to do and it takes practice. So allowing yourself to let your mind wander sometimes and not be perfect right away. And then also non-critical of the process itself. So if you don't think that being mindful is going to help you manage your stress, it probably won't. So now we've come to the first exercise in the presentation, and that is deep breathing. So what I want you to do is get into a comfortable position, no arms or legs crossed, and go ahead and close your eyes. And first, I just want you to slow your breathing down. So just really focus on taking a deep breath in through the nose, and then a deep breath out through the nose. So we're just slowing down that breathing. If you hear something in the background, your mind wanders, just bring it back to your breathing. Focus on the inhalation and the exhalation. And now we're going to start to count. So inhalation, count of 4, holding it for 2, and exhalation for a count of 6. I'll walk you through this. So let's get ready to take a deep breath in through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Let's do that again. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great job. Go ahead and do a couple more at that cadence. Again, if anything creeps into your mind, bringing it back to that breathing, focusing on that inhalation and that exhalation. Great. When you're ready, I'm going to have you slowly open your eyes and continue to deep breathe, but just become aware of your surroundings. Great. I hope you feel so much better. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some of our sources of stress. So everybody's are a little bit different, but certainly there are some that are common to a lot of people. First one being money, right? Everybody stresses about money at some point. Another thing is health, whether that's our own health or the health of a loved one. Just simply not having enough time or perceiving that we don't have enough time to do everything that we need to do, both at work and at home. Deadlines at work certainly can be stressful. All of our responsibilities, again, we have responsibilities at work and we have responsibilities at home. They're really never ending, and those can be overwhelming at times. And then unhealthy boundaries. So maybe you have someone in your life who you think is probably taking advantage of you, but you really can't speak up and say anything, or you can't create those boundaries. That can be a really stressful thing and a really difficult thing for many people. So think about this now. How many of these do you actually have control over? Certainly, there are some aspects of some of these that we really don't have control over. We can't control if we are laid off at work. We can't control if ourselves or a loved one gets some type of condition or disease. But if we really think about it, we do have some control over every single one of these. And once we acknowledge that, we can work on better managing that, managing how we feel about those. And then let's look at some of the symptoms of stress. There really are quite a few. And again, everyone experiences it a little bit differently. But some of the more common ones would be some general aches and pains, especially in the jaw, headaches, gastrointestinal problems. So either eating too much, being a stress eater, or not eating enough and losing weight. Irritability, racing heart, So a lot of different symptoms that can affect us. And if you think about it, typically if you have one or more of these, especially over a period of time, you may consult with your doctor on that. Um, Up to 70% of visits to the PCP, primary care physician, can be tied back to stress in some way. So think about how much money we individually could save, or we as a nation could save on healthcare if we were better able to manage our stress. So a lot of the symptoms we just looked at are symptoms of acute stress, meaning stress that happens right now in the moment. Maybe I got into a car accident, or I missed my plane, or things that are kind of one-time things that cause our heart to race or our stomach to hurt. They also can be symptoms of chronic stress, though, chronic stress lasting over long periods of time. So things that may cause chronic stress could be our health, or poor health of a loved one, having to take care of them, maybe losing a job, or maybe a project at work that lasts months or even years. That's very stressful. So that chronic stress is really what's going to do some damage to our health. In fact, stress is actually linked to 6 of the leading causes of death. So it's linked to heart disease, certainly. Stress can make our heart race. It can give us high blood pressure, which can lead to the damage of the heart. It's linked to cancer. It's linked to various lung conditions. It's linked to accidents, definitely. If we're not being mindful and in the present moment, we're certainly more prone to a variety of accidents. It is linked to cirrhosis of the liver. Typically, cirrhosis of the liver occurs in alcoholics, and many times people will use alcohol to mask the feelings of stress that they're feeling. They'll use that to deal with the stress. And then certainly an unfortunate one is suicide. Stress can certainly be linked to that as well. Additionally, there's a link between stress and weight gain. And obesity contributes to many of these chronic diseases and types of death as well. So we've come to the second exercise, and now we're going to do progressive muscle relaxation. Essentially what that is tensing a muscle and then letting that tension go slowly as we continue to deep breathe. Generally, you're going to go through all the muscles in the body one by one. In the interest of time, I'm going to condense that a bit, but you will still get a good idea of what it's like. So again, I do want you to get into a comfortable position. No arms or legs crossed, and close your eyes. And start by just taking a couple of deep breaths again, slowing your breathing down. Paying attention to that inhalation and exhalation. And now I want you to notice both feet, and I want you to tense up all the muscles in the toes and feet, just kind of squishing them into a ball as tightly as you possibly can, and hold it. And then slowly release that tension until both feet are back to their normal position. Great. Now we're going to move on to the calves, both at the same time. The best way to create tension in the calves is to point your toes up. So go ahead and do that. Create that tension in the calves, nice and tight. Hold it. And ever so slowly release that tension, bringing your toes back down to their normal position. Moving on to the glutes and the hips. So just squeezing as tightly as you can those glutes. You may even feel yourself rise off your chair if you're in a seated position. Hold it. Make sure you're breathing. And then slowly release that tension from your glutes and hips. Now we're going to move on to our hands. So you want to make your hands clenched into fists as tightly as you can. Hold that tension. And then slowly release the tension as you exhale through the nose. And then our shoulders. The best way to create tension in the shoulders is to shrug them or bring them up towards the ears. So do that, bring them up as high as you can, create that tension, hold it. And then slowly release the tension, letting the shoulders drop back down to that neutral position. Last but not least, we're going to do the face. Nobody's watching. So just go ahead and crunch your face up into a ball as tightly as you can. Think about all the muscles, including the jaw, clenching. Hold it, breathing in through the nose. And then as you exhale, slowly release that tension from your face. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes and take another couple of deep breaths here to return to your day. So practicing mindfulness is one great way to relieve stress or manage your stress, but there are some other ways. So one would be just learning to be assertive and saying no to requests. If we take on too much, if we're not able to say no to anything, we're going to end up burned out and stressed. Using a stress ball to release tension, that's essentially the same progressive muscle relaxation technique that we just used. So tensing muscles and then releasing them. Journaling is great. Journaling is very similar to talking to someone or talking to a counselor because you're getting those feelings and those thoughts out of the body, which really helps. Stretching, meditating, or yoga class are really great. Yoga is great because it helps your body. It strengthens it. It gives you lubrication of the joints moving around, but it also helps your mind, right? It helps you stay in that present moment, which is great. That's why they call it a mind-body class. The exercise, any exercise is great. It's really going to pump the happy endorphins, the happy hormones through your body. Eating healthy always helps, especially if you're able to maintain your weight. Making time for hobbies and interests is really important. If you don't have time to do anything that you're passionate about or really interested in, that is going to wear on you and you'll become stressed. Getting enough rest and sleep is an obvious one. Don't rely on alcohol, drugs, or food to reduce stress. That includes caffeine, which is a big one for a lot of us. And then seeking out social support. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a professional. It could be a friend, a family member, somebody who can listen and empathize with what you're going through. Being able to manage our time is another huge help with managing stress. So planning each day, even if you write out on a calendar or maybe your Google Calendar on your phone, things that you're going to do. And that those could be appointments, but it could also be things like working out or meal prepping or things that are healthy for you. If they're in your calendar, you're much more likely to actually do them. Prioritizing your tasks. Some things just do not need to be done right now. You can put those off or you can delegate them to someone else. We talked about saying no to non-essential tasks. Take the time you need to do a quality job. If you are rushing through things, yes, you're getting more done, but you may not be happy with the result, nor may your boss or your family be happy with the result. So taking the time and spending the time on what needs to be done well. Break your time into tasks. So if you have a large task, break it into smaller tasks that are less time consuming because those are more doable, right? So if we can do little by little, we're likely to get the whole task done. And then practice the 10-minute rule. The 10-minute rule says that if you can do something for at least just 10 minutes, you're very likely to continue with that task and go beyond the 10 minutes. Sometimes you're not, and if you're not, that's fine too. That's where the breaking a large task into smaller tasks comes into play. But just aim for 10 minutes, and you're golden. Limiting distractions. We have our phones at our desks typically, and so we may be in a meeting, but we're also getting a text or going through social media. So trying to get those phones away from us, those devices, is really a big part of time management, whether we want to admit that or not. And then taking breaks when needed. You're going to burn out if every minute of your day is filled with something. So being able to take the break to practice that mindfulness, that deep breathing, to talk with others and to do things that you enjoy. If we're managing our time well, we should have some time in a day to practice mindfulness and fit that into our life. Still a difficult thing, though. It's always going to be a difficult thing. So here are just a few tips that may help you fit it into your day. The first would be to schedule a set time to practice each day. So if you know that every day right away when you wake up, you have 10 minutes to spend on that, you're more likely to do it. It will become a habit and it become your time. That time may be different for everyone. Maybe it's right after lunch, maybe it's right before you go to bed, but find a time that works best for you and try to stick to that time. Practice relaxation techniques while you're doing other things. The whole kill two birds with one stone principle, right? So that's going back to cleaning and gardening and exercising. We can practice that mindfulness as we're doing those other activities. If you do exercise, improve the relaxation benefits by adopting mindfulness while you exercise. So just another example of how you could do that, if you, let's say, are on an elliptical, you could, every time your right foot comes back to the up position, you could say a phrase in your head, or you could pay attention to that foot. Just some type of cue is really going to help you stay in that present moment. Avoid practicing when you're sleepy. Certainly meditation is one way to help people fall asleep if that's the intent. But we also want to practice mindfulness to not feel sleepy and not fall asleep and to be alert and awake. And so it's important, to first identify why you're trying to practice mindfulness. And then if it is not to fall asleep or feel sleepy, don't do it when you're tired. Lastly, expect ups and downs. We talked about being non-critical of yourself. This is a difficult thing to do. It does take practice. You're not going to have time to do it every single day or feel like it every single day, but allow yourself that and just always come back to it. If it's a priority, if it's a habit, you're going to do it. And now we've come to the final exercise in the presentation, and that is guided visualization. So with guided visualization, you really want to try to use all 5 senses to really put yourself into a scenario. And when you're trying to manage stress, certainly the scenario you imagine should be peaceful and calm and conjure up feelings of happiness for you. So that scenario is a little bit different for everyone, but for the purpose of today's exercise, we are going to be at a secluded beach. So once again, please get into a comfortable position and close your eyes and start by slowing your breathing, focusing on the inhalation and the exhalation. And keeping your eyes closed, I now want you to focus on being able to see how blue the water is. and the brilliance of the sun shining down on you. And off in the horizon, you can see the sail from a boat that's passing. And you can hear the waves crashing up onto the shore. Maybe some birds flying overhead. And as those waves crash up onto the shore, you can feel the cool water on your toes. And as the wave goes out to sea, you can dig your toes into the sand and feel that gritty, cold sand in between your toes. You can feel the warmth of that sun beating down on your skin. You can smell the salty sea air, and you can taste a refreshing drink that's quenching your intense thirst. So now, please take another minute or two and use all 5 of your senses to really take in that secluded beach where you are as you deep breathe. All right, when you are ready, I'm going to have you go ahead and open your eyes, continuing with deep breathing so that you can return to your home or office. And I hope that you revisit that beach frequently, especially when you're feeling stress or tense. As we conclude, I'd like you to think of a couple of things and come up with an action plan. So you've heard about different ways to practice mindfulness, how to fit it into your day. You've practiced 3 different mindfulness exercises. So let's put this into action. The first thing I want you to think about is, what is my biggest source of stress right now? So if you can identify what that is, that can help you come up with an action plan to manage that. Then I want you to think of just one thing that you can do in the next week to help manage that particular stress. It could be something you learned today. It could be something that you've tried in the past and has worked, or it could be something that a friend or family member has recommended to you. But think about what that one thing is that you're going to do in this next week to help manage that biggest stressor. I highly encourage you to go through the other 5 parts in the series so that you can complete the mindfulness and stress management course. Thank you for joining me today.